Why did the nail technician call the police after seeing what was hidden under my gel manicure? I was at this upscale salon in downtown that my aunt had gifted me for my 22nd birthday. I'd never been anywhere this fancy before. They had champagne and everything. The nail technician was this incredibly meticulous woman named Lynn, who spoke broken English but was clearly a master at her craft. I'd been wearing the same gel manicure for about 4 weeks because I'd been buried in my master's thesis research. I'm studying forensic anthropology, so I'd been spending countless hours in the lab examining bone fragments and analyzing crime scene photographs for my project on post-mortem interval determination. Lynn started the removal process, carefully soaking each nail in acetone. She was taking her sweet time, which I appreciated because most places just rush through it. But when she began filing off the old gel on my ring finger, she suddenly stopped mid-motion and got this puzzled expression on her face. She grabbed her magnifying glass and examined my nail more closely. Then she called out something in Vietnamese to her coworker across the salon. The other woman hurried over and they both started studying my finger intently, whispering urgently to each other. I asked what was wrong, but Lynn just shook her head and said, wait, while continuing to examine my nails under the magnifying glass. She moved to my middle finger, then my index finger, finding something on each one that made her eyes widen. She grabbed her phone and started making a call, speaking rapidly in Vietnamese. I caught the word police, and my heart started racing. I demanded to know what was happening, but she just kept saying, very serious, while gesturing at my nails. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers walked into the salon. One was this young female officer who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, and the other was an older male cop who seemed genuinely concerned. Lynn immediately rushed over to them, pointing at me and speaking in broken English mixed with Vietnamese. The female officer sat down next to me and asked if I was okay, if anyone had hurt me recently. I was completely baffled until Lynn showed them what she'd found under my old polish. Under the magnifying glass, there were these tiny dark specks embedded in my nail beds that looked exactly like dried blood spatters. They were concentrated under several nails, forming these distinctive patterns that honestly did look pretty sinister if you didn't know what they were. The officers exchanged glances and started asking me about my living situation, if I felt safe at home, if anyone had been violent toward me. I kept insisting I was fine, but I could see they were skeptical because the evidence under my nails really did look like I'd been involved in something violent. That's when it hit me. I started laughing, which probably made me look even more suspicious. I explained that I was a forensic anthropology graduate student, and I'd been working in the lab with artificial blood samples for my thesis research on blood spatter analysis. The lab uses these synthetic blood mixtures that are designed to behave exactly like real blood for training purposes. Despite wearing gloves, some of the samples had obviously gotten under my nails and dried there. The officers looked skeptical until I showed them my student ID and called my thesis advisor, Dr. Smith, who confirmed that I'd been working extensively with blood evidence simulants for my research project. The older cop started chuckling and said this was definitely a first for him. The female officer seemed relieved and said they'd rather investigate a false alarm than miss a real case of domestic violence. Lynn was mortified and kept apologizing, but both officers praised her for being observant and caring about her client's safety. They said they'd rather respond to 100 false alarms than miss one real case where someone needed help. Turns out, Lynn had actually helped identify 2 previous cases of domestic abuse by noticing unusual marks and injuries on clients' hands and arms. She'd been trained by a local women's shelter to recognize signs of abuse, which is why she knew to call the police when she saw what looked like evidence of violence. I got my birthday manicure completely free, and Lynn insisted on giving me a paraffin wax treatment too. She made me promise to scrub my nails better after lab work, and I made her promise to keep being so vigilant about client safety.